Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Just a few housekeeping notes real quick. If there is an emergency, we have emergency exits out and to the right, so please do that. If you need to use the restroom, go outside to the left. You'll see the signs. We'll be doing a panel here. Q&A will be towards the end. If you do have questions, there's a mic set up in the room at that time. Please feel free to go there to ask the questions or raise your hand and I'll come by and grab you with this handheld mic. But thank you all very much for coming. We really appreciate it, especially on a Wednesday morning with traffic. I know it can get crazy. Just as a keynote note, we do have Andy Jassy doing a fireside chat at 11:15 today. Really exciting for us to have our CEO. So please do try to attend in halls D and E. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Byron Patel, who's going to get us started today talking about Storage Gateway. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Nicole. Can everyone hear me in the back? Okay. Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bhavin Patel. I'm a product manager with the AWS Storage Gateway service. I will kick off the presentation today and set the foundation for what is hybrid cloud storage, what is Storage Gateway. And I'm very excited to have several customer speakers here with me on stage today as well. Brian Weidel and Louis Masters are from the Federal Home Loan Bank of New York, and Robert Francois is from the Congressional Budget Office. They're here to talk through on their journey to cloud and how they're using Storage Gateway to meet their needs. Before I get started, let me do a quick poll of the audience to see how many people here are familiar with AWS Storage Gateway. Okay, a few hands. How many people are actually utilizing it right now? Okay, one hand there. And how many people have plans to utilize it or will consider utilizing it over the next few months? Okay, that's good. So that's the audience. So this is the right session for you. So from an agenda perspective, this is how the session will flow. I will start to talk about hybrid cloud storage. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the use cases for which you can utilize AWS Storage Gateway? Then dive into Storage Gateway, talk about what is Storage Gateway, what are the different types of gateways, what are the capabilities, benefits, on what platforms you can run Storage Gateway. And then I'll hand it over to Brian and Luis to talk about their use case on how Federal Home Loan Bank of New York is utilizing Storage Gateway to address some of the challenges that they have. And they'll hand it over to Robert, who will discuss their use case on how they're using Storage Gateway, what are some of the benefits that they have seen, what are some of the lessons that they have learned from their experience. And then we'll do closing back to me at the end and do Q&A. And just in case we run out of time for Q&A, we'll be standing outside with several of my other colleagues from the team as well to make sure your questions get answered. So what is the hybrid cloud storage problem that we have heard from talking to many customers? You have a lot of data already from your traditional applications in your data centers, in your remote offices, in your branch offices. And that data is continuing to grow at a fair pace. But you also have data that's getting generated from new sources now, new devices, new instruments. That wasn't the case before. So you have data that's continuing to pile up for which you need to provide storage to your end users. But at the same time, your budget is staying flat. So you're looking at cloud and seeing how cloud can help to address some of the challenges that you're seeing. You've heard of cloud's ability to pay-as-you-go model, the ability to scale capacity on demand as demands from your users grow. So essentially, you're looking to embrace cloud, but you would like to understand what's possible from a hybrid cloud perspective because you don't want that transition to be abrupt for your end users. You want to ease into that transition. Which brings me next to what are some of the use cases that you can think about when considering hybrid cloud storage. So the very first one here is moving your backups to the cloud. It could be backups of your on-premises applications and databases to the cloud. So think of cloud as not only the place where you can run compute, but you can think of cloud as a storage medium as well, where you can back up your on-premises applications, databases, your physical tape-based workflows that you might have today where you're backing up to physical tapes, you can move those backups to cloud as well. Essentially, you can utilize cloud for really long-term storage that will help you meet your compliance requirements and your recovery and restore requirements. The second one here is shifting on-premises storage to cloud-backed file shares. So if you have file-based applications that need storage, you can essentially do that using Storage Gateway. The third one here is around providing low latency access to data in AWS for on-premises applications. So a lot of customers have gathered a lot of file-based data in their data center, and they're probably storing it centrally as well. In many cases, you might have that data in the cloud already. But a lot of customers in industries such as healthcare and life sciences, media and entertainment, oil and gas, they have distributed locations, remote offices, branch offices, where you need to provide the data that's generated centrally to be able to edit in those remote locations. So that is one other use case for which you can consider using Storage Gateway. So this slide here shows our hybrid cloud storage and data transfer portfolio. We have built out the broadest and deepest set of capabilities to help you address your various different requirements, whether you want to do online data transfer, whether you want to do offline data transfer, whether you just want to utilize hybrid cloud storage. So we have S3 transfer acceleration for online data transfer, which really accelerates your gets and puts for S3 compatible applications. We have Kinesis Data Firehose, which lets you load your streaming data into S3. AWS Transfer for SFTP is a fully managed and highly available service that lets you move your SFTP-based workflows to the cloud without changing your applications and clients. Data Sync helps you move your on-premises NFS-based data to either S3 or Elastic File Storage in the cloud. And just yesterday, we announced support for Data Sync in the Gov Cloud West region. So you can utilize Data Sync in that region as well now. Snowball family of products provides compute and storage in disconnected and harsh environments. And then finally, there is Storage Gateway, which is the subject of today's discussion, which provides customers on-premises access to virtually unlimited storage in the cloud. Next, let me dive into Storage Gateway. So as I was mentioning earlier, Storage Gateway provides you access, on-premises access to virtually unlimited storage data in the cloud. So Storage Gateway is an element that you typically deploy in your data centers, in your remote offices or branch offices. You connect your existing applications, your existing storage systems to Storage Gateway over industry standard storage protocols. And then the Storage Gateway on the other side connects to various different storage services in the cloud. So Storage Gateway supports Amazon S3 and various different storage classes of S3, such as S3 IA, OneZone IA, Glacier, and most recently Deep Archive. Storage Gateway is also integrated with several other services that you need to operate, such as identity and access management, key management services to make sure you can encrypt your data using your own keys. CloudTrail is for logging and audit of what's happening to your gateway. And then there's CloudWatch as well, which provides monitoring and event notifications. So the Storage Gateway family is comprised of 3 different types of gateways. The very first one here is File Gateway, which lets you store and access objects in Amazon S3 as files on your premises. If you have Windows or Linux applications that want to utilize file-based shares, then you can utilize File Gateway for that. Volume Gateway presents block storage over iSCSI to on-premises applications. And it is backed by Amazon EBS, so you can take copies of volumes and then store them in the cloud as EBS snapshots. And then there is Tape Gateway, which acts as a drop-in replacement for your physical tape infrastructure. So if you're backing up data or archiving data to tapes today, instead of managing the physical tape infrastructure and managing the physical media, you can move those backups or archives to AWS using Tape Gateway. And I'll dive into each of these gateway types next. So what are some of the benefits of using Storage Gateway? Storage Gateway supports multiple protocols, as I was mentioning earlier. So it supports industry standards protocols such as NFS, SMB, iSCSI or VTL to make sure you don't have to change your applications, you don't have to rewrite your applications in order for you to be able to utilize cloud storage. Storage Gateway manages that protocol translation for you. Storage Gateway provides local caching, so you still have low latency access to your frequently used data. So if your applications are used to certain latency, Storage Gateway provides that cache because it sits next to the application. Your writes and reads from the application are going straight to the Storage Gateway first, and then are getting addressed from there. And then the Storage Gateway in the background asynchronously handles the queries, uploads to the cloud. Storage Gateway also optimizes data transfer. So if you have locations where you don't have sufficient bandwidth, Storage Gateway helps make sure that it's only uploading the changes that have been returned to your application. It's only requesting the data that has been requested by your application if the data is not in the local cache. So it helps to minimize the network traffic. For volume and tape gateways, we also compress data before we send it to the cloud, so that way you get another data efficiency mechanism. It is secure and compliant, so it supports all the compliance certifications that are listed here. Your data from your premises where Storage Gateway is running to the cloud is encrypted, and data is also encrypted at rest once it's in the cloud. Again, it's a cost-effective model compared to your traditional way to purchase storage. You're paying as you go. You can provision more storage, but you will not be charged for that storage unless you're actually utilizing that storage. And finally, it is AWS integrated. So Storage Gateway is integrated with the different services that I was mentioning earlier: IAM, KMS, CloudWatch, CloudTrail. Storage Gateway element, a Storage Gateway that you are running on premises, you can manage that from your AWS console. So you can issue software updates, you can get alarms, monitor the resources right from the console, from a central place. So what's new with Storage Gateway since last reInvent? So we've been busy addressing a lot of customer enhancements that have been coming into us. And this enhancement sort of cut across the board. For File Gateway, we have added support for more performance, the ability to selectively refresh your cache, and I will discuss what does that mean. We added support for S3 object lock. Most recently, we added support for SMB access control lists. For Volume Gateway, we added support for AWS backup. So if you are taking backups of your volumes, you can store them as EBS snapshots, and you can utilize AWS backup as a service to centrally manage all your backups, not only for volumes that are running on-premises, but also the resources in the cloud. We added support for monthly maintenance windows. So earlier, the gateways were on a weekly maintenance schedule. So we've added some more flexibility where you can upgrade your gateways on a monthly basis now. For Tape Gateway, and this was a big one, we added integration with Deep Archive or Glacier Deep Archive, which is the cheapest storage class available in Amazon. Most recently, we also added support for the ability to move your tapes that you might be storing in Glacier to Deep Archive. And then from platform perspective, we added support for more regions. We added more flexibility for the hardware appliance to be able to buy more storage or use a different networking card option. And then we also added the ability to easily navigate to an EC2 instance. So in case you're running Storage Gateway in Amazon EC2, you can easily navigate from Storage Gateway console to EC2. Let me do a deep dive next on some of the gateway types. So the first one here is File Gateway. So the File Gateway is typically deployed again in your premises. It offers local caching, and it offers NFS and SMB shares to your applications. And some of the use cases for which you can utilize File Gateway are backing up your on-premises applications, databases to the cloud to help you reduce your administration and infrastructure costs. You can shift your on-premises storage to cloud-backed file shares. So you might have file-based applications that need storage, and you're running out of capacity on your storage arrays. But these applications don't need the performance of storage arrays. For example, logging applications, database backups, web servers. You can utilize File Gateway for those use cases. And low latency access to data, as I was mentioning earlier, is more about providing access to your on-premises users, access to data that's located centrally. But those users need access to data in a low latency manner because they can't tolerate cloud latency. So File Gateway provides the cache there, which allows users to access that data locally, make changes, and then upload to the cloud. So from a capability standpoint, File Gateway supports these protocols, NFS, v3, v4, SMB. The files, on-premises files, are stored as S3 objects, and the file metadata is also stored in S3 object metadata. And we added support for SMB access control lists. Earlier, we used to support POSIX style permissions for these file shares, and most recently we added SMB access control lists through which you can now support up to 10 Windows users and groups. Cache, as I was mentioning earlier, is a read-through, write-back cache. So write IOs from your application are committed locally to the gateway cache, to the storage, and then we upload that data asynchronously to the cloud. It optimizes data transfers, so uploads only sends the changes that have been made by the application. If data is not in the cache, then File Gateway downloads only the data that's requested by the application. So it does this byte range gets and puts. There is notification capability through CloudWatch as well, through which you can generate, if you want to get notification whether your files have been uploaded to the cloud and are in your S3 bucket or not, you can set your share to be able to generate the CloudWatch notification. Then your data is encrypted at rest in the cloud. In transit to the cloud as well, we utilize TLS. Refresh cache by prefix allows you to optimize content distribution workloads. So if you have data that's located centrally, but that data is not present in the File Gateway cache because that data was evicted, there was not enough space, then we have this ability to refresh cache by a particular folder so that you can download that piece of, especially metadata, that you can download to that gateway from S3, from your S3 bucket. Then we also support S3 object lock now. So if you have worm-based applications that need file storage, you can utilize File Gateway for that. We'll dive into Tape Gateway. So Tape Gateway essentially presents virtual tape infrastructure to your on-premises backup applications. So it presents virtual tapes, virtual tape drives, media changers. And essentially, if you are backing up data to physical tapes today using physical tape libraries, you can just move that backup to using Virtual Tape Gateway instead. So you can utilize it for tape-based backups or archives to the cloud. From a capabilities standpoint, again, it presents the cache, as I was mentioning earlier. And it supports a wide variety of backup applications. So you don't need to change any of your backup applications, any of your backup workflows. Instead, you're simply writing your backups and archives to the virtual tapes that are presented from the gateway. When your application is writing data, it's in the gateway cache or in Amazon S3. And if you eject the tape, which is an act of moving that tape, putting it on a truck somewhere to send it to an offsite warehousing facility, in our case, we'll move that tape from S3 to Glacier or to Deep Archive. You can also retrieve your tapes easily, so you don't need to rely on any third parties to retrieve your tapes. Everything is in your control. You can just go to the AWS consoles, find the tape that you want to retrieve, and retrieve it to your library, and then present it to the backup application. And it supports encryption, and we also improved our performance earlier in the year. And the volume gateway, this is the third type of gateway. It presents cloud-backed block storage to your on-premises applications that you can utilize for backups. Again, you don't have to change any of your applications. If your applications are using existing storage arrays over iSCSI, then you can just continue to utilize those applications and write to Storage Gateway instead. So the volume gateway, as I was mentioning earlier, it presents block storage, so your volumes that are presented out to your applications. You can create snapshots of those volumes and store them in Amazon EBS using AWS Backup. You can manage retention of those copies, automatically delete them as needed. Volume Gateway sort of operates in two different modes. One is called stored mode, which is where your entire data set is local to the gateway. You still have a copy of your cloud that's being copy of your data that's being backed up to cloud. But in the cached volume case, you only have your most frequently used data set locally, and your entire data set is then available in the cloud as a copy. Again, you can move volumes between gateways. So if you want to do underlying hardware refresh of the infrastructure on which you are running Storage Gateway, you can easily move volumes between gateways as well. And this is sort of my last slide here before I hand it over to Brian and Lou. So Storage Gateway you can run on a variety of form factors. The one on the left-hand side over there is a virtual machine, so you can run Storage Gateway on a VMware ESXi or a Microsoft Hyper-V in your corporate data center. So this is typically used when customers have their own VM infrastructure and they have VM admins to manage the infrastructure. The one on the very right-hand side is the hardware appliance, which provides an out-of-the-box experience, typically used in remote offices, branch offices. And it's also used by many customers when they run into challenges internally to secure the compute, storage, and networking resources necessary to put together a VM. So this helps them get on a path to cloud very fast, bypassing all of that. And the one in the middle is Amazon EC2, so you can also run Storage Gateway in EC2. Typically, customers use this for in-cloud access to the data, so data that they had backed up from on-premises to the cloud. They can have access to that data, whether it's EBS snapshots or the virtual tapes that I was talking earlier about. You can access that data, instantiate a gateway on EC2, and get access to your data that way. So again, we support multiple form factors there. Okay, with that being said, let me hand it over to Brian from the Federal Home Loan Bank of New York to go through their use case.
Tom, did everybody hear me? Good. Thank you. Sure. For those who do not know us, we are the Federal Home Loan Bank of New York. We are one of 11 congressionally chartered federal home loan banks representing New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Our mission is to provide a stable, consistent source of liquidity during all financial operating conditions, and it allows our members to leverage our liquidity to then lend money for community development across our district. Our cloud team is not just a cloud team, but has significant support from our executive team, as well as executive sponsorship from our CIO. We have a cloud operations team. We have data governance, business continuity, networking, information security, architecture, development, infrastructure, storage, and security operations all have a seat at the table for our cloud environment. What's key for this is that this team does not just manage and maintain our cloud environment, they also maintain our hybrid on-premise environment, which is where Storage Gateway really comes in. We initiated our first cloud migration in 2016, and our goal for the architecture of our AWS environment was to take baby steps. We wanted to make sure that our cloud environment matched and mimicked the way we managed and maintained our data on-premise, and we were doing that in the cloud as well. So within that AWS environment, what we were doing with Storage Gateway is that we have multiple levels of backups, both for on-premise, backups being in online storage, rotating them off the tapes. We were leveraging the Storage Gateway platform to take our online AWS backups and manage and maintain and lifecycle them through the AWS storage itself. The key that we have is that we were trying to take baby steps and maintain that consistent on-premise environment in AWS as we take these baby steps, then growing into, as we learn the cloud environment, the more capabilities that we have. I'll let Mr. Masters walk you through the actual architecture that we use for Storage Gateway.
Okay, so most of what Brian said and most of what you're going to see up here is a little different from the beginning of the presentation. The first thing you're going to notice, if I can figure this out, is we're not actually on-prem with Storage Gateway. We did something a little bit different. And as Brian said, we have a really sophisticated adoption architecture. We call it, you've probably heard of it, baby steps. When we were first moving to the cloud, we have a cloud-first strategy that we have, but again, we have that huge team of people that we have to bring on board. So there's a lot of people that have to agree. So what we decided to do is only implement Storage Gateway, and again, our talk is specifically on the tape part of it, in AWS, almost as a trial. Now that trial's been about 2 years now. We're pretty comfortable with it. Some of the other requirements we had from the beginning was that we had to use our existing software, or we were trying to use our existing software. We wanted to move as much off physical as possible, right? We want to move to the cloud. We're trying to shrink our data centers and go cloud first. And also, we wanted to use our existing processes, right? We have Tidal. I don't know if anybody uses Tidal. We have some scripts that are running. They're doing backups before and after our batch runs. We didn't want to be re-engineering all that for the cloud. So when we first looked at Storage Gateway, or specifically the tape portion of it, again, the biggest point, oh, this is pretty neat, is that it works with our existing networker, right? We have a pretty significant or substantial monetary investment in our networker product. We use that for all of our on-prem, and that also leverages that we could use that for our cloud, right? It's the same people, the same resources, the same technology. It wouldn't be that big of a shift. Also brings, and as I'm going to say later on, it also brings more people into adopting the cloud, which is one of the issues we had. The other issue is this worked seamlessly with Tidal and our scripting and everything like that. So it wasn't that big of a jump for that portion either. The other thing, again, we are running completely on AWS. We run all of our tape gateways on EC2 instances. So we didn't have to purchase any hardware. We didn't have to move anything on-prem. Again, it's pretty much, like Brian said, mirroring what we're doing on our on-premise environment. Baby steps. So we had a couple other requirements that we had to make sure worked. Again, we had to back up all of our production volumes to tape, right? We have over, say, 2,000 production volumes. All of them had to be able to be backed up to tape. We have different backup schedules, and we also have different regulatory requirements. I think one of them is, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, I forget what it is. And we have actually certain ones that are permanent. So we don't want to be dealing with maintaining pieces of hardware, right? Everybody has those in their data center. You have some old tape drive. We don't want to be dealing with that anymore. We want to deal with these virtualization of our tapes. And we also don't want to be dealing with different backup schedules with different tools. So that's why we adopted this. Right now we're running about 5,000 tapes, which isn't a huge amount if you think about it, but those are sticking around pretty much forever. So again, we don't have to manage it. We don't have to send them over. We don't have to package them up. We don't have to destroy them. We don't have to make sure they're destroyed. AWS handles all of that for us. Now, this is the slide that everybody really wants to get to because I said I was going to be brutally honest. No, I'm kidding. I make him nervous when I talk like that. Biggest benefits, like I said, were we don't have any more physical tapes anymore. Those are gone. Love that. We don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore. We also have unlimited storage, right? We don't have to worry about tapes. We don't have to worry about anything like that. Now our challenges, which is the one that I really want to talk about, is what I said before. Everybody's probably seen this. When you talk about cloud, the biggest thing is the culture shock, right? Everybody uses it. I'm not going to tell you how to fix it. How we fixed it is that team that Brian showed you. We basically, everybody's on the same team. We have a cloud operations department, it's me, but I go out, we used to call them, a long time ago, call them tiger teams, which is, I hate to use paradigms or thinking out of the box. We used to call them tiger teams where you have a representative from every subgroup. They come in, and that's how we get people to have skin in the game, right, and adopt some of these things. And again, I'm not going to tell you for your organization how to get past that. That's how we got past it. Also, again, baby steps. I hate to keep saying that. Brian said it, I think, 3 or 4 times, and I will make fun of him for it later. But that's one of the things that helped us. Taking these little steps helped us adopt, check, and then adopt again. The other challenge we had was performance. And if you saw on this one slide, if you notice, we're not running 1 gateway, we run 4. Right now we run 4, and that's just because of the sheer volume. We've also switched to EBS-backed caches, right, running 2 terabytes, I think, on each one. And we have to tweak those or add to them as performance either gets worse or gets better. And again, you have to keep on top of it, and that's what we use CloudWatch and CloudTrail for. You have to keep on top of it and watch it. You still have to maintain it. It's a lot better than we do with our tape backups, our physical tapes and things like that. But again, far and away better than what we used to do and the amount of time we had to put into it. Next steps, again, I'm not a commercial, but this is what we're looking at. We are looking at file gateway now. We're pretty confident that tape gateway is the way we want to go. We have some issues with talking about different file shares and things like that. We're going to look at file gateway. I'll skip that one. We're also looking at deep archive. That just came out. Again, because we take baby steps, going from a 4-hour retrieval time to a 12-hour, it scared a lot of people. Oh my God, I can't get my tapes in 12 hours. Our tapes are actually tertiary backups, right? We use snaps as our primaries. I don't think we've ever had to, for testing we have, but I don't think we've ever actually had to recover something from a tape. But again, they're there, my regulatory requirements. And then this was the big one, right? We're gonna start using this for on-premise. Again, one of the reasons we wanted to stay with Networker, which goes back to some of the other slides we saw before, is you can just swap it out on-prem and have your Networker on-prem save your tapes into the cloud. Again, we want to leverage Networker. We want to leverage that same process. And again, we want to take more and more baby steps to get us into this. So I'll be available afterwards. I know I blitzed through this really fast, but somebody's a little long-winded behind me. And I'll be available later if anybody wants to talk about anything else. Robert?
Hello. Hi, my name is Robert from the Congressional Budget Office. Let's see how I slide here. There we go. Okay, from the Congressional Budget Office. Congressional Budget Office, we're a legislative agency. It's kind of separate, very separate from the executive branch. We are charged with providing cost estimates and reports for the Congress. We're nonpartisan. It's very important. We don't provide recommendations. We just provide the analysis for Congress to make those decisions. We cover a variety of subjects. It's somewhat different from other agencies. Our workload can be very, very much from week to week, from month to month, because it's whatever Congress is dealing with at moment. And sometimes the subject is very, very hot, like healthcare. If we're possibly analyzing that, it is our highest priority, and then we have to produce something in a week or 2 weeks. We can't go months and then not provide that analysis for Congress. So there's a lot of variability to our analysis. And our needs on the IT infrastructure. So I'm from the Information Resources Management group. We're basically the IT shop for the agency. So we're a small agency. We only have 235 FTEs, and our IRM group is only about 13 or 14 people, and half of that's help desk. So we don't have the manpower. We don't have the massive budgets and resources, and so we're a lot of times constrained. And yet we're still an agency that has to provide those capabilities that are expected of any agency. So again, we're a small agency. We just don't have that budget. We are, but we still get we're charged with analyzing this data for Congress, and we have statutory requirements for a lot of agencies to provide that data. So we get data from Census, CMS, and a lot of other federal agencies. And we're storing this data, these large, very large data sets, and we're storing that for a long time. We also have narrow requirements that require us to keep some of our data sets and some of our models for 15 years, which is a really long time. That's half my career, potentially, just storing that data. Why the cloud? That pay-as-you-go model really works for us. So when we're analyzing the health insurance market, we'll need massive compute resources. We're doing that. We're pulling down a lot of information. We're processing that information. And then what happens? Next week, 2 weeks from now, it's no longer a hot subject. It's not something Congress is interested in at that moment anymore. And so what do we do with those resources? Well, we turn them back in. And that's how we're able to save that money. Before, when we're on-prem, we're just spending tons of money just trying to get this resource out, trying to produce these cost estimates, trying to produce these reports, and then they just sit there for till next year, or maybe the year after, or maybe till after presidential cycle. There's so much variability to it. And so the cloud is fantastic for us. That just makes us agile. It makes us fast. We're able to provide a lot more capability than we did before. And Storage Gateway is one of those kind of tools. So our challenge is, our data keeps growing, right? It never goes down. Sometimes it goes down. I remember we used to go to each of the branches and say to them, hey, what do you think your storage needs is going to be next year? What do you think it's going to be 5 years from now? Has anyone ever got a straight answer from any of them? Has anyone ever they might even be honest and tell you what they think, but 2 years from now, 1 year from now, it's always different. So that was one of the challenges. We just didn't have the manpower to constantly go back to these folks and say, what are your storage needs going forward into the future? And so we were purchasing, and we were running out of money, and we keep purchasing. And we had separate storage systems, and one guy knew it, and the other guy knew it. And we're a staff of 6 or 7 engineers. We just didn't have that. When he was out, and there was issues, he was out, and we didn't have that backup. But we still have to give our analysts the access to the data. Some of our requirements, we had to store the data. We have NAR requirements that require 15 years of storage for our models and the associated data that we use to create these estimates and reports. Point-in-time backups, the typical stuff you have in storage. You gotta have access to the storage. You gotta have backups. You gotta point in time. You gotta be able to restore that data to whatever date when a request comes in. And so we looked at it, and Storage Gateway, File Gateway specifically, was a fantastic fit for us. Specifically, we used it for our database backups. So we have massive amounts of data. When we throw it into a database, and the analysts access and use that, well, we were backing that up to our main storage, which is expensive. We have on-premise storage. It's expensive. There's only one tier. We're not a large agency. We have one tier, and we're using up that one tier just for database backups. And it started to get massive, like 4 or 5 terabytes. Our records were also going on there. So every time an analyst produces these reports, they have to put it into the NARA archive, and then we have to submit that to the NARA folks every year. And that was starting to get massive. And there was just not a lot of benefit to keep it on premise. So File Gateway, we threw a local cache on it. I think we threw it at like 3 or 4 terabytes of cache. Put it on there. They still have access to it, which is fantastic. The local cache is just fantastic. We really love that we have on-prem access to the most used data. And if you think about it, users are using 20% of the files 80% of the time. So just having just that takes care of most situations when you have a loss of connectivity. And so we use File Gateway for that. Second use which we have is for local repository. So we have these data sets, and these divisions would squirrel away their copy of it. These guys would squirrel away their copy of it. And we didn't have this large space that we could provide for everyone to pull those data sets down. So because it's almost like a superpower, we can give them this view of terabytes and terabytes and a huge amount of storage, but we don't actually have to have it. We can have this local storage and just give it a little bit of space just to get it running. So this file shares, we have I think 30 or 40 terabytes of data sets that we have from different agencies and whatnot, but we don't actually have it. It's in Amazon. We only provide a couple of terabytes of local storage, and they're able to access these things have very fast access to this. I mean, it's local. We have it on SSDs. These users are using it, and they're like, "Hey, this is an improvement." They think it's fast. They think they got an upgrade. And really, we took away resources. We're taking away resources and providing it to other high priority applications locally. And so the way we use it, we have this big repository, and we give them read-only access because we don't want them changing the data. But there's one analyst that manages and maintains that data sets, and he adds it to the S3 bucket, and he just hits a refresh, and the gateway's refreshed. It's unbelievably simple. And this kind of puts into pictures what I said in words here. So basically, we have our records and users, our database archives and our records. They go into this SMB file share. They access it just like they have before. That's one thing that was great, that we didn't have to tell them anything. We didn't have to show them how to use it differently. We turned it off one day and turned it on in the next minute, and it was up and running, and the users didn't know any better. They just saw that it was faster in a lot of respects. And it throws in the cache. We use Lifecycle. I love that. Before, we used to have all these database scripts that managed how many days we kept it and all this. We throw it in an S3 bucket. We throw in a couple of couple of lines of whatever requirements are. So it deletes it after so many days. It moves it to, actually we use intelligent tiering. So initially we're paying 2.5 cents, 2.3 cents for standard, then it moves it to infrequent access. Great thing about intelligent tiering, if they do access it, it moves it back into standard. I'm not involved. We're 6 engineers. We just don't have I don't have the manpower to kind of manage this. It takes it all out of our hands and just manages it beautifully. So benefits we're seeing. The users think we're Superman. They think we have all this storage now. When they see the volume, it says I think it says 8 exabytes. They don't even know what an exabyte is. They're like, oh, it's just green. It doesn't even. There's no even. Like when you see that red storage, it's like you got like 10 gigabytes left. They don't even see a bar anywhere. It's just clear, and they love it. They used to be concerned about saving the data sets. Now they don't have that concern. We don't have to spend time expanding volumes. It's sped up performance. We used to have because it was so large, we couldn't put it on our flash storage. We put it on regular hard drives. Now we can stick the cache on flash storage. Users think it's better, it's faster. And we're using intelligent tiering there to save costs. So it's very cost effective. It's much cheaper than what we were doing before. And it's automatic. And we got rid of racks. I mean, we had this tape array. Like I said, I keep saying we're a small agency. We had these, but it was a big deal for us to get rid of 1 or 2 racks because we just don't have the space. We're on one floor of an office building. Yeah, and then the reduction in scripts. It's just getting out of trying to write this stuff and maintaining this, and then when an engineer leaves, we don't really know what he wrote to maintain backup. So getting that all out there and getting it in the clear here, where we can all kind of see it in the storage gateway and in S3, just fantastic. And then lessons learned. So tiered storage, it allows us to focus our limited resources. So we, by taking all the storage off our on-prem stuff, we can use it for something else, which is nice. The automation, I talked about that, where just don't roll your own too often. Unless you can create value for the organization, let someone else take care of that, especially when they're doing it at a high level of capability, like with the automation lifecycles in S3. And the cache, that's what sold it for the organization. Our organization was really concerned about it's not here, right? Everyone wants control. They want to touch it. What sold it was that when I brought a copy of it online, and I just unplugged the internet from it, just like that. And the CIO accessed it, and he's, what do you mean it's still there? I thought you unplugged it. Yeah, it's right there. It's in local storage. All the files that you accessed are there. And that just sold it. He's like, basically, so what's the issue? So what was the negative? I couldn't tell him a negative. That's what really sold it for us here. And then, that's the cache. Performance, couple of things that we did run into, when we were sticking so much data into it, we didn't have the bandwidth to send it up. So our internet was kind of suffering. So we didn't know that initially. And finally, when we get into the CloudWatch metrics, we were looking, oh, hey, it's uploading massive amounts of data on the back end because we're putting massive amounts of data on there. So through CloudWatch Metrics, we're able to put some alarms in there, put it in, and kind of let us know when that happens. And then we applied some bandwidth throttling on it so that it won't use all of our internet bandwidth. It'll use just a portion of it when it needs it. So those tools are available, but you got to be aware of that and before you start using that. But that's what I got. So over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Brian, Luis, and Robert, for sharing your use case with the audience here. So hopefully you got a good taste of my precursor earlier on storage gateway. So it was not just theory, but customers are using it practically as well to address their storage needs, on-premise storage challenges, and hybrid cloud storage needs. So where can you go to learn more about Storage Gateway? So this is our website, aws.amazon.com/storagegateway. This is where you can find all types of resources, white papers, videos, links to documentation to help you get started. A couple of related breakouts here. We're also running a couple of campaigns to help you migrate your offline media and digital medical images to AWS. Again, these campaigns are only for the public sector customers in the United States, but you can certainly visit those links if you're interested in moving your physical tapes or large archives of medical images to AWS. You can go and sign up, and someone from the AWS account team will reach out to you. So with that being said, I'm at the last slide. Let me open it up to the audience now for Q&A. Yes.
So
there is a, Nicole will bring the mic over to you.
for your on-premises storage gateway, is that a capital purchase or just a monthly operating cost?
Sorry, what was the question?
When you have an on-premises device, is that just a monthly operating cost, or is there an upfront capital cost?
Yes. So the storage gateway pricing is based on a pay-as-you-go model. So you will deploy storage gateway on a VMware or Hyper-V, but then there is a storage cost, so how much storage you are actually consuming. So it's again on a monthly basis. There is a data transfer fee for storage gateway, which is capped at $125 per gateway per month. So that is the second element. So the first one was storage, how much storage you consume, gateway. And then the third one is in case you're transferring any data out from the cloud, there's an additional charge for that. So but it's again based on a pay-as-you-go model, nothing needed upfront from you.
We have time for one more question, and then it's time to go. But please do fill out your surveys as well.
I was actually interested in, you have a EFS and an FSX option for SMB and NFS. Why would you use, if you're targeting those two protocols, why would you use Storage Gateway, which this supports it as well, over top of those protocols, or vice versa?
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have Paul? Do you want to address that, Paul, or? Yeah, Paul? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The question was around choosing Storage Gateway over something like FSX or EFS. And so in those instances, FSX and EFS are in-cloud file systems. So you want to think of those for your in-cloud workloads. Whereas something like File Gateway, which does provide an NFS or an SMB protocol, is more targeted at your on-premises workloads. Again, you deploy that VM in your premises that gives you that local cache that was discussed, close to your application, with your data being mastered and stored off in the cloud. So really, it's that on-premises versus in-cloud use case that's a good trade, sort of the very easy way of making the distinction. Subtleties in there that I'm happy to talk to you about in more detail, but that's sort of the biggest decision point. Is your application in cloud, or is your application on-premises?
On-prem, but I noticed on the slide it said 1080 users for SMB. You had that on your slide here. Yeah.
Oh, how many? So I think you're referring to the number of file shares that a single gateway will support. So the way we think of a file share is a file share maps to a single bucket. And each gateway can support up to 10 buckets or 10 file shares, whether those are NFS or SMB. And again, if you have needs for more than that, please talk to us, because we've heard from a couple of customers that want to support more file shares per gateway, as opposed to having to deploy multiple gateways. So that's a good point of discussion. I have stickers, by the way, if anybody wants stickers.
Yeah. We'll be standing outside in case you have any questions. Thanks for coming, and hopefully this was a good session for you, walking away with actionable insights. Thanks once again, and thanks to our customers as well for coming to present at this session.